Man, this is Deion Dawkins, man, and you're listening to The Scoop on owlscoop.com. You already know.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to The Scoop, owlscoop.com's podcast. I'm John DiCarlo, the editor of the site. We've got a full house today. Kyle Gauss, Javon Edmonds, Caden Steele, and our guest. He's always been so kind with his time and joining us again on The Scoop. The season opener is what, 12 days away, right, Jimmy?
11 or 12, I think. Yep.
Yeah. November 7th, season opener. And Jimmy Fenerty, Temple assistant coach, is with us again on The Scoop to talk some basketball and give you a scan of this program heading into the season. Jim, we always start our goofy little tradition is, so it's episode 13. We go famous number 13s. Famous number 13, what jumps out to you?
It's a great question. I don't know.
Could be any sport.
Was Kurt Warner number 13? Does that help?
Does
that help with the Temple fan base there that I know?
Yes, it does, yeah.
That might be, I'm going to stick with that one.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say that's why EJ wears number 13.
There you go. That helps too.
Wilt Chamberlain.
Yeah.
Well,
it's a great one.
Oh,
come on.
Outfielder that died with exactly 3,000 hits.
What's that?
An outfielder that died with exactly 3,000 hits, Roberto Clemente.
I thought Clemente wore number 23. He wore 13?
I believe he wore 13.
I don't know about 13. I thought he was like 21.
Yeah, he wore number 21. Yeah, he wore number 21.
Just pretend.
Yeah,
he wore number
Clemente
21.
was 21.
He wore number 21. Actually, wait, hold on.
You have a Roberto Clemente bobblehead? Yes, of course
Yes,
you
I
do.
do.
How about that?
People can't see this on the podcast, but yes, I have a Roberto.
Well, this random website that I Googled famous number 13s for then on notice because
which one did you have, Caden?
Steve Nash. I know Javon, not a huge fan. James Harden, another guy Javon hates to watch, just shaking his head. But, when it comes to basketball, at least since the 2000s, those are two guys, I think of. Other than that, it's tough. Christian Kirk, I guess, just because the ridiculous contract the Jaguars gave him. I know that's a random one to, pops in the head.
Jimmy, what number did you wear when you played?
I was 20 in high school, 21 in college.
Oh, God. All right, we'll have you back on again when we get to episode 21 of The Scoop. But Jimmy, again, thanks for being on with us today. Really appreciate it. This is a highly anticipated season for you guys, of course. And I think we'll get into this in the conversation. I think you guys have a lot of the pieces that you want now on the roster. I think one of the biggest pieces of preparing for this season is probably reintegrating Khalif Battle back into the lineup after he missed all the 7 games of the season last year with the foot injury. How's that gone so far in preseason practices, and how's he feeling?
Good. Yeah, it's going well. And K is he's back. He's healthy. Brings a scoring punch that we didn't necessarily have last year once he went down. But those other guys stepped up, and now it's been interesting to see kind of how those all guys kind of mesh together. But I think when you look at our lineup and you can put Fabe, Dame, Zach, KB all on the floor at the same time, like that's a lot of shooting. You know what I mean? So having those guys being able to play together, and I think it's fun because I think they all really like playing with each other. And they enjoy that part of it. So it makes it easier for them to share the ball. And that being said, you got to pick one guy out of those perimeter players to beat you, right? So, you can't take all 4 of them away. And when you throw in our bigs that we have, you can't take all 5 of them away. So I think it's going to be different guys who lead us in scoring on different nights. And you look at our scrimmage, and I know we'll talk about that later, but we had 5 guys in double figures and 2 other guys right behind them who were close. And I think that's a product of, 1, how well we shared the ball, but 2, we have a bunch of different guys who can score the basketball. You look at our team, and we have, I think, 9 guys on our roster who have started a game in college before. So mixing and matching and trying to find the best combination in the lineup is going to be big for us, but Kay's going to be a big part in that as well.
Jimmy, I swear, once a podcast, you have a perfect segue. And speaking of that scrimmage, I don't know how much you want to get into the actual specifics, but it's been reported that you guys beat Georgetown team that probably should be a little better this year than last year by 8-9 points. What was kind of, the format of that scrimmage, and how'd you guys kind of leave that feeling about your team?
Yeah, so we played 2 20-minute halves, and we treated each half like they were the end of the game. So it was actually good because we got a couple situations out of it and just sort of working on time score situation, different things, up 3, down 3, that type of thing. We threw that in there as well. But we left happy. You know, it's our guys. I know everyone gets all excited right on the first day of practice, but we really never stop practicing. So for our guys, it's been since really April that we've seen someone else. So for us, it was a great opportunity to see a Georgetown team, and they've gotten a lot better. I expect them to be a team that finishes in the middle of the pack, at least there in the Big East. So good scrimmage for us. They always bring a lot of size and a lot of toughness. So for us, it was a good chance to test that out. And really, they play similarly to us in a lot of ways and similar to our conference. So that I thought helped out a ton. So, but we left excited about our guys. Obviously, have some things we have to work on. I think our offense was a little bit ahead of our defense, which is going to stun some of your avid listeners because normally it's the other way around. But for us, it was exciting to see how well we moved the ball. So we had 17 assists, 11 turns, which was great for us. Obviously, you want that 11 turns to be closer to 6, 7 if we could. But 17 assists is terrific, and that goes back to the last question in terms of our guys and putting 5 guys in double figures. I think that's huge because a lot of our shots, and now you make some, you miss some. A lot of our shots were one mores. A lot of our shots were drive kicks. A lot of our shots were drop offs to the bigs, and that was huge. I think we had 2 guys. One guy on our team went a perfect 7 for 7. Another guy went 6 for 7. So those guys played really well, and we're excited about that. And we have a lot of answers to a lot of questions this year. But that being said, the only thing that I think gets in our way is us. So how do we handle roll adjustment? How do we handle not getting enough shots? How do we handle guys taking certain guys away? How do we handle days when we're tired or we're sore or somebody's got a bum ankle and who's going to step up? And that's going to be a big piece because it's going to be different guys on different nights. And that's an exciting thing. And that's a beautiful thing. But also there's some uncertainty with that as well. So I think for us, we've been really honing in ever since the scrimmage, the last 3 or 4 days here on the defensive end and getting our guys ready to really figure that part out. Because I think when we locked in the second half, that's when we really made a big run against Georgetown there.
Jimmy, I know we talked a little bit last night, but the transfer of big men, Core and Jamille, can you talk about, what you saw from them against Georgetown and, what they're really capable of doing for you this year?
Yeah, we have 3 5-men, all who have started games in college. We have 3 5-men who really compete and really fit our conference. I think Big Millie, he's a scoring threat like we haven't had since I've been here. And even when I was here as a grad assistant, I don't think we've had that in a while. Millie can score. He can score right hand, left hand, can step out. He made a 3 in the scrimmage. You saw him last night in the 3-point contest. I told him he got too tired after the second rack there. He stopped using his legs. But Millie's a guy who he can score in a lot of different ways. He gives you a significant punch offensively. That being said, he's also, he's 7 feet tall and he's about 280 right now. And he can pass. He can pass out on the perimeter. He's very, very skilled. Core is a guy who makes a ton of winning plays. So Core has terrific feel. Defensively, he is everywhere. I think he had 7 rebounds in about 18, 19 minutes or whatever it was. And that was huge for us. He brings he makes other guys better. He's very easy to play with. He makes other guys better, good on rolls, good at catching lobs, and actually had a couple of assists there too. So those 2 guys played really well. And then you got Big Ema, who's physical. He's physical. He's not afraid to hit somebody. And you guys know as well as anybody in our league, especially playing Houston and Memphis, you're going to need somebody to hit somebody too. And those other 2 guys do it as well. But Ema is a force down there in that as well.
So where does Nick factor into all of this? With those 3, I know he's going to play a little bit of small ball 5 too. Where does he factor into all of this?
Yeah, Nick has been playing predominantly on the perimeter for us lately, playing that 4 spot, being on the perimeter. He's really improved his shooting and his decision making on the perimeter. I think you will see him at the 5 too, especially late game and when teams are switching and when we switch as well. I think you can switch with Nick at the 5. I think you can switch with Core at the 5. And to be honest with you, I think against teams that really spread you out, you could switch with Jahlil at the 5 if you really wanted to, just because he really could play any position on the floor there. But yeah, I think you'll see Nick sometimes at that small ball 5 as well. I thought he gave us really good minutes there last year. That's not his preferred position. I think when we brought him in, he was more kind of a guy who was going to play a little bit on the perimeter. But obviously circumstances dictated that we needed him down there. So I think you'll see him a little bit there. But I think those other guys will really play predominantly those minutes.
In your estimation, Jimmy, what player have you seen, improve the most over the offseason?
It's a great question. I think our sophomore class has improved tremendously. So Zach Hicks has taken as big of a jump as anybody. Incredibly efficient in our scrimmage. Incredibly efficient. I think he's. I don't want to give you the exact points, but I think it was about like something like 19 on like 10 shots, and just incredibly efficient in what he's done. I think Hysier, so we were up in we changed the scores after both, but Georgetown went on a little bit of run, and you saw Hysier really emerge as a leader for us, vocal, getting guys into spots and really rallying the crew there, which was pretty cool. And then Jahlil White, he just does so much, and he's working on his decision making, working on finishing and doing those things, working on his outside jumper. But he does so much out there on the floor, and seeing those three guys really take a step, and then Nick Jourdain as well, seeing his steps that he's taken, it's been great from that perspective, and excited about those guys. I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody, so I apologize if I am.
I think you hit everybody there. Jimmy, I wanted to ask you a little bit more about Hysier. You guys have always known that the work ethic has been there with him, and then he started to make, that bit of that leap. I think he scored double figures in 4 of the last 6 games last season, had the career high in the conference tournament, worked hard over the summer. Tell me a little bit more about what you've seen from him as a ball handler, as a guy who's, I think at one point he said he wants to finish better around the rim. Like, what have you seen from him just more specifically in that scrimmage? And I know you touched on it just now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's been more vocal. I think he's trying to lead, and that's hard as a sophomore, right? So like, to come in here and then tell a bunch of new guys like what they have to do and where they have to be, that can be hard for somebody at 19 years old, and you're still trying to figure out your life. You know what I mean? Your role, your responsibility. But he's been doing a good job being vocal. He pushes those guys every day, tries to set the tone, and for him, it's going to be being consistent, and there's going to be a lot of pressure on his shoulders, but he's built for it. So we've seen a lot from him, and just getting better every day, working on his leadership style, working on his voice out there. And really for him, it's going to be about making great decisions with the ball and making great decisions in ball screens. He's going to have to keep all these guys happy, right? So Millie's going to need shots. KP's going to need shots. Damian Dunn's going to need shots. Block's going to need shots. Block being Zach Hicks, I apologize, but we call him Block. He's going to need shots. So all these guys, he's going to have to manage all these guys. So it's going to take time for him to figure all that out and how to make sure that we spread it around to the way that we're capable of. But he's done a great job. We're really proud of him.
Who's handling the ball for you guys, whether Hysier is on the floor and just, doing something else in the offense, whether he's off the floor? Is it Jahlil? Is it Dame? Who else do you feel comfortable with handling the ball on this team?
Yeah, the beauty with what we run, and Chris Clark and Aaron have done a great job of sort of implementing this, and it's been, you sort of can put the ball in anyone's hands. Obviously, Fave is the primary ball handler there, but you'll see Shane Dezonie on the ball some. You'll see Jahlil White on the ball some. You'll see Dame Dunn on the ball some. I think that those guys are all sort of going to help it out by committee, especially with some of the teams we play in the non-conference there with St. John's and the way they press and sort of get after you. With VCU, we'll do the same. We're about to scrimmage Iona this upcoming weekend, and they play the same way. That's sort of why we wanted to make sure we scrimmaged Iona. But you'll see all 4 of those guys really have a chance to handle the ball and get us into offense.
Jimmy, Shane's like you just talked about, a guy who might have the ball in his hands, might just be more of a scoring threat off the bench at times. What have you kind of seen from him? I know Aaron has described him as a calming presence, a very calm player on the court.
Yeah, he's got a good basketball IQ, can make a 3, can get in there. He's got good size. He had a move where he spun the post on big Cook from Georgetown, got in there, played off 2 feet, had a nice little hook shot, so he can take advantage of his size. That's the beauty of our team. Like we have one guy under 6'5" on our roster. So for us, and that's Fave, and we remind him of that every day. But for us, he's got great size and length and versatility. He can do a little bit on the ball, a little bit off the ball. Just he brings a toughness too. He's not fazed by anything out there. So,
Jimmy, I kind of wanted to follow up on that with the roster composition. I feel like it's been said, but Is this the first year that you feel like, okay, this is how we think the roster should look going forward? This is the construction that we want?
Yeah, it is. And it's hard. It's going to get harder too to manage roster sizes. And I think that's why we only have 12 scholarship guys, right? So like this day and age, guys, if they're not playing 20 minutes, they want to transfer. So trying to navigate that with a mix of youth, of older guys, a mix of high school guys, a mix of transfer guys, it's not easy. You know what I mean? And you wind up almost being a GM more than you are a coach these days in the offseason. So trying to figure all that out is tough. But I really like where our roster's at moving forward, because a lot of these guys can come back. I think everybody on our roster next year could come back except for core. So that's the beauty of it. Now, some guys are going to have opportunities to go professionally and do some different things that way. Some guys have been here for 4 years and have 3 years left of eligibility, so trying to navigate all that is difficult. But in terms of the roster with where we want it, this is a group we feel like has a chance to win a lot of games, and we're excited about it.
So last season, J. Will and KB missed a good amount of games, and that really forced Dame to have to step up and come into his own and evolve as a player. What have you seen from him, not only from, his performances last year, but the progress he's made this offseason and, where you expect him to be as a player now? He made the preseason, first team all conference.
Mm-hmm. Leadership, I would say he's been a terrifically calming presence for our young guys. And as he goes, we go in a lot of ways in terms of our energy. And the other piece of it is decision-making. I think Dame in the past he was thinking score, and he had to. I think he's letting the game come to him a little bit more. And some of that is probably trust in those other guys that we have, but also some of it is in him giving himself up to make other guys better. And in doing so, that in turn makes him better. And I think that's a big piece. I also think that Dame Dunn's a guy who likes to get downhill, likes to get in the paint, make things happen. And we haven't had a ton of shooting around him in the past, right? So now there's more guys in the gaps. Now he's got to make tougher decisions, or there's more hands in there. So if he does try to kick it out, it's less likely that it's going to get there. Now you have shooting around him at almost every position. So with that, there's going to be a lot more floor spacing. And with that, there's going to be a lot more opportunity for Dame Dunn to take advantage of what he does best.
We know, how good of a player Jahlil White can become if he, starts to shoot more consistently. What have you seen from him in the offseason with his shot?
Yeah, he works on it every day. And he does a great job of really getting in here. I'm sitting in my office right now, and you can hear the music in the practice facility. It wouldn't shock me if it's Jello, because he's in here so much. But yeah, that's been a big piece for him. And I'll tell you what, I mean, everyone knocks his shooting. You look at the big games that we won, like Jahlil made shots. Like there wasn't a time where somebody leaves him open from that corner. And I think if you took the last 5 minutes of games and just took the stats from those last 5 minutes, Ja probably shot a really good percentage because he made big shots for us. So in my mind, the confidence is there. And I think that's a big piece in being a great shooter. And now he's just got to keep repping it.
And other than his, that shot, where else have you seen, Jahlil improve?
Decision making, getting better, playing off of 2 feet. I know he works on his finishing every day. Our grad assistants do a tremendous job of really helping him with that, along with Chris Clark and Monte and all these guys. And for him, he's really worked on his finishing. He's just so big, man. Like he gets downhill, he puts that shoulder into you. If he can finish, he's really hard to guard.
Jimmy, you were talking about Zach earlier, and obviously we know he can shoot the hell out of the ball. And you talked about the offseason he's had and the progress he's made. He rebounded the ball really well last year. And some guys who can shoot come in as true freshmen. They kind of just want to camp out in the perimeter and not do much else. Has he kind of surpassed your expectations? I know he's still got a lot to learn as a player, but in terms of the other aspects of his game, getting involved in rebounding and stuff like that, and not just shooting, was that kind of a pleasant surprise, or were you guys expecting that when you saw him from the time he got to campus?
You can never doubt how much Zach Hicks wants to win. And I think he shows that every single time. And I think a lot of that is because he's so competitive and he wants to win. So he's doing all the little things that he needs to do to win. And you look at it this year, he's really, really put an onus this year defensively. on learning how to guard the best players. So he's not that I think we'll put him on the best players, but every day he's tried to match up with Khalif Battle and trying to figure out how to stop him. He's one of our better box out guys so far, and he's really put the onus on that because he knows that's what leads to winning. And I think Zach is a tremendous young man who's put a ton of effort into his game, but I think he's also bringing it every day and really putting a focus on doing things that lead to winning. And that's one thing that really excites me about him. And I obviously you know that coming in, you think that he's like that, but he's definitely surpassed our expectations in doing the little things. Zach is really smart as a basketball player and as a human being, but as a basketball player, he has a terrific IQ, really good feel. He's a really underrated passer, I would say. But he has a good feel and he knows what it takes to win, and he listens, picks it up quick. That was the best part last year with Zach and Fave being young guys, will be sort of thrown in the fire. They listen. They listen and they take what you tell them and they go and execute it. Not that I think we have all the answers, but they try to do what we ask every single night. And I think that's made Zach a really good player.
What is he like off the court, Jimmy? I mean, outwardly to us, he seems pretty, like, obviously, again, a good shooter. And you can see that he looks like he's a competitive guy, but he seems kind of shy. Is he not like that off court?
So when we recruited Zach Hicks, it was much like this conversation, right? So we would have all the staff and we'd get on the Zooms and Zach would maybe say 2 words in an hour. And we would be talking to his mom and his dad, and Zach really wouldn't speak. And then we'd go see him, or he'd be on campus and he would say like 2 or 3 words, like you really couldn't get much out of him. Now he doesn't stop talking. So I think he's one of those kids that he's got to get comfortable with you. But Zach he's hilarious. He's hilarious. Came in. We were sitting in here meeting today, so today's our off day, and he just comes in, just like he's one of the coaches, sits in the coach's staff office and just talks for 25 minutes, and you couldn't stop him talking. Like he was just going. So he's a really funny kid. So if you see him on campus, be sure to say what's up to him and call him Block. That's his nickname. We call him Block. So it'll be a great conversation with him.
You gonna be upset with us if we call him Block?
No. Everybody calls him Block, so you'll be fine.
All right.
Jimmy, I know Aaron's one of those guys who doesn't really care too much for what's on paper, doesn't care for media polls or coaches polls. He made that real clear last year once you guys proved everyone wrong about the preseason ranking. This year, 5th in the preseason poll. Dame said it's tournament a bust for you guys this year. What is it like having these heightened expectations, and what's it like to see the players really holding themselves up to it too? Yeah,
it's this is where we want to be. I think I remember my first podcast I did with you guys 4 years ago. That was always been the goal, and the goal has always been the goal. So I don't think our expectations change. I think the expectations from the outside world change, but our goal is to finish in the top of that conference every single year. And in doing so, we put ourselves in a position to go to the NCAA tournament. So for us, I think the danger in it is, like, everyone's telling us, oh, you guys got a chance to be pretty good. You got a chance to be pretty good. That is more dangerous in my mind than anything else, right? So, like, yeah, we got a chance to be pretty good, but at the end of the day, like, our first 6 games are huge. So we got to be ready to go, and nobody cares. You don't start the game up 10 because everyone thinks you're going to be good. No, like, you still have to play the game. So that's important. And that's, for us, managing that expectation and really working with our guys to stay committed to doing the work and not getting caught up in all the extra stuff is going to be important.
Jimmy, with that in mind, where you say, okay, we know that we have a team that's capable of going to the NCAA tournament this year. You look at those early non-conference opportunities for you guys to get those potential resume building wins, whether it's Villanova on November 11th, Rutgers in the Hall of Fame showcase, St. John's in the Empire Classic. You talked about how much they press you. You guys, as coaches and players, you have to be conditioned to say, oh, it's one game at a time. But is there the human side of you that looks at the schedule and says, wow, we got some big tests early on, and this is that early stretch of the schedule could really determine what things look like for you guys in March? How much do you think about that? And then how much do you have to, like, rein yourself back from it and say, we can't get too ahead of ourselves, I guess?
The coach speak answer would be to say, hey, John, I'm concerned with beating Iona and then Wagner.
Mm-hmm.
But that being said, yeah, they're massive games for us. I think when we're making our schedule right in the middle of last year, we're thinking, oh, wow, this is great. Like, let's get the best schedule we can. Now you're looking at it like, oh, okay, this is a hell of a schedule. I think we just came out with the second best schedule in the non-conference, and Memphis is ahead of us by a little bit, and I think we're in the top 10 in strength of schedule, projected strength of schedule in the country right now. So that's Temple though. That's who we've been. That's what Aaron wanted to do, and that's what we need to do if we want to put ourselves in position to get in that large. But now, like you said, we got to take care of business. And we gotta establish who we are early, and we have to set the tone early with who we want to be. So I think the beauty of what we have is we have a lot of guys coming back, and we have a lot of guys who've played. Whereas last year, I didn't think we were ready for those games that early, right? So we weren't ready to play Boise State and Clemson because we still had so much gelling to do as a team. Because really, Dame, KB, like those guys had never played together, and we had a lot of young guys who were in the mix. And I think this year you have a lot of guys who've played before, who've been in those games, who have some presence to them, and a lot of guys who have played well together. So that the gelling piece is a little bit further along. So I think we're more ready for those big games this early in the season.
Yeah, and I mean, Jimmy, not to over glorify an opponent, but you got Houston twice this year too.
Exactly.
They came in to the top 5. Like, not to try to, like I said, not to over glorify an opponent, but how important is it to show up for those 2 games, especially?
Yeah, they're huge. And I would argue that those games are even bigger than the non-conference games, right? So, like, I think our conference is a good enough conference to get 4 teams in the NCAA tournament this year. I think you got us, you got Memphis, you got Cincy, you got Houston, you got Tulane. UCF is always going to surprise some people. So, like, I think if our conference does what we're supposed to do in the non-conference, I think you could see 3 or 4 teams and maybe a 5th there on the bubble. So, but that being said, yeah, I mean, if you want to win the conference right now, you got to be Houston. It's no ifs, ands, or buts. They've won the last 2 or 3 or whatever it is, and they've gone to a Final Four and Elite 8. So that's who we have to beat. That's who we're trying to be. That's Aaron has modeled our roster in his own image, but with paying attention to how Houston built it. And I think we're on a similar track. Houston didn't make the NCAA tournament under Kelvin Sampson until year 4. So for us, this is a big year. It's a big year, and beating Houston is big for us. That's about as big as the Wagner game, because the Wagner game is the first one, and that's the one we got to win. So, but that being said, like, I'd be remiss and I'd be lying to you if I told you that the Houston game, the Memphis game, the Nova game, like they're not big games for us, because they are.
I know, like, this is a very, fine line to talk about, but this NIL stuff is now a thing. Temple's officially in it with the Tough Fund. News came out today that schools can now request donors to provide to funds and collectives and all that. How has that really changed the way, you guys have to go about business as a coaching staff?
Yeah, so we sort of, not sort of, we do. We have to stay at an arm's length from that. So won't get into that a ton, just out of just trying to navigate what the rules are and what the rules aren't, because I think a lot of it is still up in the air. But it's the new reality, right? So I love the fact that our guys, and I love the fact that our guys are being taken care of, and I love the fact that our guys have opportunities to go make some money for themselves, because they should. And I think that's great. I think any help we can get for our guys, and not we can get, but the Temple University fan base can provide for our guys is tremendous. And we're happy that our guys get those opportunities, and especially if it has some benefit to the community or to the Temple culture as well. And that's terrific. And we're really excited about that. So I have seen the rule that you're talking about, or the ruling that you're talking about. I haven't completely delved into it enough to understand what I'm allowed to and not allowed to say. So I'm going to be really quiet on that. But am I excited that our guys are being taken care of? Absolutely.
And I know you and Chris are the ones primarily on the road doing the recruiting. Does, having stuff like this make life easier on you when you're trying to tell a kid to come to North Broad?
I can't have that conversation with them, but yeah, I think Chris and Monte and I, we try to stay up with what's going on and try to make sure that our guys are the guys that we're recruiting are excited about Temple. Absolutely.
Jimmy, I want to talk about the 2 you just mentioned, also, Jason and Mark. It's probably not rare for a coaching staff to stay together for 4 years, but it's definitely not common, right? For to have the same guys for you to kind of be here from the beginning. How have you guys kind of grown as a coaching staff since when you first walked in here, 4 years ago?
It is a big family. and I know family is a overused word, but it is. And 98% of that is a testament to Aaron McKie and to Coach Shane and to what Temple means to all of us. And Aaron is a guy who empowers his staff, but he also, if Aaron is going to treat everyone with a tremendous amount of respect and treat them like family, then we all have to follow suit. And not that I think we needed him to show that for us, because I think we're all built like that as well. But if Aaron's doing that, then we have to do that. I think if you sat in on our staff meetings, there'd be a lot of laughs. But when it comes time to get down to business, we all have each other's back. And I think that's been the beauty of it. And the other thing is, I think we're all local guys, and we all have a tremendous amount of love and respect for not only Temple, but the city of Philadelphia. And I think it shows a lot to the character of Aaron, but also to the character of the school and to what we're building here, that everyone stayed. You know what I mean? And everyone wants to stay. Now, do I think that's always going to be the case? No, probably not. Guys leave, guys get jobs. Hopefully Chris or Mont can get a head job here too. You know what I mean? Like, that would be great for them. But that being said, I really love the chemistry that we have. We work well off each other. And I think the guys feel that too, right? So I've been on staffs before where the assistants don't really talk, or they don't really like each other, or the head coach doesn't really like this guy. And the guys see that, right? And that carries over into the team. But with us, it couldn't be further from the truth. I think we're a pretty tight-knit group, and we have our issues here and there, like all families do. But at the end of the day, we all want to win, and we all want to support each other. And at the end of the day, Aaron McKie gave all of us a chance. And there's nothing that Aaron McKie wants more than to turn Temple into what it was when he was playing. The only thing Temple hasn't done is won a national title in men's basketball. They won the NIT, but it won an NCAA Tournament national title. And every day when we take recruits through the Leah Core Center, we look up at the rafters and we tell them that. And it's our job to change that. And hopefully we're on our way to doing that. But this staff has been great, and sticking together is how we're going to do it.
Jimmy, you have time for a few mailbag questions?
Absolutely.
All right. So we got a few for you here. Most of these are from subscribers from our message boards. The first screen name here is Green Street Al. He says, thanks for doing these as always, Coach. I'll pick one of these questions out here. With the season approaching and as intense practices have continued, can you break down the strengths of some of the newcomers? And without playing favorites, name a guy who has surprised you the most with his play since formal practices began.
It's a great question. Guy who surprised me the most is not surprised, but has impressed me the most has been Zach Hicks. He's taken a big jump. The new guys. So I talked about Millie Core already. Talked about Shane. Taj Thweet has a tremendous amount of energy. I think you saw that last night at the Cherry and White. I think he wanted to jump into every single event that they had. But Taj has a tremendous amount of energy, and Deuce is a guy who he's done a great job in a tough spot, right? So he's the only freshman. He's the only one that's never played college basketball on our roster, and he's fit in really well. He's a guy who can make shots. He's learning how to play, learning how to defend, but he's been doing a good job. So we're excited about him in the future as well.
Another question from Green Street out here. Any chemistry lessons you and the staff and the team can take away from the Phillies run? Is the team doing anything different, or might they do differently this year to grow closer?
You know, we've been trying to find a team theme song. You know what I mean? We can't. We're trying to come up with our own, dancing on our own type of Temple feel. But that being said, so I was on campus giving a tour actually on Sunday night. And 2 Temple students ran by screaming, telling me that we're headed to the World Series. And you can't not want that to happen here, right? You can't not want that to experience that. And hopefully that means we're on the road and we just made the Final Four or whatever it is. But the love and the excitement around the city right now is incredible. And we got to keep that going. And that's something we're excited to do.
Next thing here is just a request and not a question. It's from the screen name Esther Boyer. Hi, Coach. Please beat Villanova. Thanks.
Trying our best, man. Appreciate it.
Next question here comes a screen name. I think it's a new subscriber. Quinn Dive 2 is the screen name. Inside presence and rebounding have been an issue for many Temple teams in the past. What improvements do you expect in this area with the additions of Core and Jamille? I know you've talked about them a lot so far, but just in those areas, like rebounding, just being a presence down there, affecting shots, anything like that. What can you say about what those guys could add there?
No, they have to. I met with them today. and watched film with Jason Ivey and Jalen Bond and just talking to them a little bit. It's been those guys got to get us 20 rebounds a game between the two of them, and Ema's got to add in another 5 to 7, right? So they have to do that. They have to bring that every single night, and if they do, we're going to put ourselves right where we want to be. That's been a big piece for them. I told them they have to be selfish in rebounding the ball. If they have to run over one of the guards, they got to run over one of the guards, but go get the ball, and that's a big piece.
And just to jump out of the mailbag for a second, you just mentioned Jalen Bond, having him on staff as a grad assistant. What's it like having him around? I mean, he was a pretty good player here.
So when he first got here, me and Jason Ivey, we stood him next to Core, Jamille, and Ema, and we said, Jalen, how tall are you? And for the first time in his life, he said he was 6'6", even though he's always been listed at 6'8". And I said, all right, Jay, now how many rebounds did you average your senior year? And he said, a little bit more than 10. And then I turned to those other guys and I said, all right, how tall are you? Millie's like, I'm 7 feet. Ema's like, I'm 6'9". Core, I'm 6'9". Okay. So you have no excuse not to get 10 rebounds a game. So, but Jay has been awesome. Him and Colin Daly and Ryan Brooks, they work every day with Core on his finishing. They work. Some of the fans are going to laugh at this, but he rebounds for Millie when he makes his 5. He's got to make 5 threes in a row before he leaves practice every day from the top of the key. And those guys, he's been great with our guys and giving them the players touch and just mentoring them and pushing them. And it's somebody who's a little closer to them in age. It's somebody who's been through everything that they're going through, and he's a great listening ear, but he's also a great reinforcer of our message as well. Mm-hmm. So having Jay has been great. He was one of my favorite players I ever worked with, and now having him back to work with him is awesome.
Jimmy, just to follow up on that, was the Plymouth White Marsh team that had CJ Aiken and Jalen Bond on it like the most athletic team you've ever seen?
So when I was I had to be a sophomore maybe, or a junior. I think I was a junior. And we played LaSalle. I was on varsity, and Jalen and CJ played in the JV game. They started the JV game, and then I think they started the varsity game at the same time when they were at LaSalle. And Jay actually dunked on me in that game, and I don't think I've ever told him that. And then I actually played AAU with CJ, but love them both. Good dudes, tremendously athletic, and underrated piece on that team was Marcus Badger. Who I grew up with, was a heck of a player, had a hell of a career at Randolph-Macon, but a really good player as well.
Got a few more mailbag questions here. This one comes from the screen name Q's Pen. We lost high-level perimeter defense and ball protection in terms of low turnover ratio with the departure of Jeremiah Williams last year. Do you feel Temple has enough to compensate for that loss, and how do you see that playing out?
Yeah, Jeremiah and Ty, I thought, did a great job last year of wearing down the other team's ball handler. And Jahlil became the third of the three-headed monster defensively in terms of doing a great job personnel-wise. Yeah, that's a loss for us. That's a loss for us. We don't have guys who are terrific defensively like that, but I think they make up for it with their offensive prowess. But that being said, we have to translate that into being even better as a team and team defensively. And I think that's something that Core really brings, sort of helping some stuff inside and with our length. When you play against us, our length and versatility really bothers a lot of teams. So we're excited about that. So I think that makes up for it.
Yeah, last 2 questions here from this last mailbag participant. I'll be back on Twitter. Number 1 is coaches. What are some things you try to have the team work on during the not so secretive scrimmages?
You work on chemistry. You work on lineups. You work on just in-game adjustments. So Georgetown did some things end line out of bounds, and we had sort of adjust on the fly, and that was great for us. You work on some situation stuff where the other team doesn't know what you're doing. Our guys like to think they're smart, and they try to cheat all of our plays when they guard us every day. So now it's nice to have someone who doesn't know what every play call means, so you can see what works, what doesn't work. That part's big. And what was the second question? I'm sorry.
It was what are some of the things second question. Okay. Favorite place you've watched a Phillies playoff game this postseason?
It's a great question. I'm going to out myself for where I go. Favorite place. So one of my college teammates actually had his bachelor party when they beat I think they won game 1 or their first game at home. So it was game 3 against the Padres. And they rented out a house in South Philly. and the whole block wound up on the street when they won. It was pretty cool. Pretty cool. So that's what I'm gonna go with. So not gonna give myself an NIL deal with McGillen's or any of those other spots like I normally do. But it was a house in South Philly with a bunch of my college teammates celebrating my one buddy getting married. So it's pretty cool.
Nice. Jimmy, thanks for doing this again, man. We appreciate it. Like we said, the season's upon us. Good luck to you, and we'll be certainly talking to you down the line.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate it, fellas. Love what you guys do.
Thanks, Jimmy. All right. Big thank you, as always, to Jimmy Fenerty for joining us again. Less than 2 weeks away is Temple's basketball season. So stay tuned for all the coverage that we'll have for you leading up to the season opener. Got a football team to talk about that is continuing to struggle. Temple lost what should have been a winnable game to Tulsa 27-16 last Friday. At the link, they jumped out to a 10-0 lead behind Leighton Jordan's pick six and Camden Price's field goal. But giving up 299 yards on the ground was really the story and what did them in at the end. More stuff on the offensive line. Adam Klein left with an injury. James Family left with an injury. Adonicus Sanders, a wide receiver, came out in the second half wearing sweatpants. Well, I guess all those guys, we should note that in Monday's press conference, Stan Drayton, normally there, was out with, I guess, flu-like symptoms, or I think
he might still be
viral.
out.
Yeah.
He's not doing the radio show tonight.
Yeah, Everett Withers is doing it tonight.
Yeah, so we got Everett Withers, the chief of staff, and he actually gave injury updates, started like Andy Reid did. So I don't know what kind of offensive line we're going to see at Navy. We'll see if Adam Klein's out there, if James Family's out there. I don't know. Amanda Anderson played better, but the passing game was clearly off. Zay Baines was targeted 10 times in that game, and he and EJ Warner didn't connect once. Running game got going a little bit more with Ed Sadie, but again, I think that the game was there to be won, and a defense that has gotten better at taking the ball away, making plays happen there, just could not stop the run. They couldn't stop the run up the middle, getting gashed on an 84-yard run where somebody comes right up the middle and just doesn't get touched. Does not bode well for this week when you're going down to play a Navy team that has struggled, but it's been kind of hard to figure out. As much as you can say that about a 2-5 team. But before we get to Navy, guys, what do you take away from this, from this game? Again, I know there's not much to say. It's a rebuilding team. And none of this is super shocking, but what jumps out at you from what you saw last Friday?
Zay Baines, the receiving core is in trouble. I think we're assuming this is Donald's last year. I want to say it is.
It has to be. He's out of eligibility.
Yeah, I think Barbone's out of eligibility.
No, Barbone technically could come back, but you've been here 5 years. Who knows?
Yeah. So after they're gone, they've got to bring some people in. I mean, John, you have the stat: 10 targets, not a single catch. Either he dropped it, or he ran the wrong route, or him and EJ just weren't on the same page. Those are the only three outcomes of those 10 passes. In Barbone, it was a night where they needed him to be the number one option. And the Butterfingers still there. So the receiving core needs help. The whole offense is just, it's a head case.
And Barbone was targeted 13 times, and only ended up with 6 catches. Not to say that all of those were on Jose Barbone, but again, just not.
But quite a few of them, when you get two hands on it, I grew up around some receivers. You get two hands on it. Yeah. Bring that ball in.
Yeah,
you're playing FBS ball at what's the Power 6 conference, whatever the hell. Not getting free endorsement out of me for the American these days. Come on, you got to catch the ball, my man.
I don't know versus Mike Oresco.
If I had a list of things behind me of the reason they lost that Tulsa game, Jose Barbone's number 43. We have given a little too much attention to the team's leading receiver this season.
Yeah, but no, Adonicus Sanders, tough cookie for trying to stick it out. The O-line, hey, bless their hearts. Camden Price, I still need to look at the film to see if that thing got blocked or if it was just a bad kick.
He can be a bad kick. I mean, there's a reason he didn't win the job in Miami, right? Like he's been better than Rory Bell, but it can still be a bad kick. I think the fact that Tulsa only ran for 25 yards the week before and then gashed you is concerning.
Mm-hmm.
If you're an optimist, I think Darian Varner and Leighton Jordan are having all conference level years, and they showed that again on Friday. I did watch every second of that game. I thought I was going to watch none of it. I walked into a bar in Asheville, and there was the Phillies and the Temple game. So I said, well, we're just staying at this bar tonight. Mm-hmm. So I watched every single snap of that. Not EJ's best game, but not his worst, I guess. Just a growing situation. I mean, it kind of is what it is. It was a winnable game. If you had told me they were going to start off 10-0, and start the game 10-0, I would have thought they'd have a good chance. Instead, they just looked flat for the next 3 quarters until a kind of who cares drive at the end.
I think that's my real problem with this game. Aside from the fact that Ahmad Anderson had another one of those nights where it's dude run north-south and make smart decisions with the football, especially on kick returns.
Again, 100-yard receiving game.
But he had 100 yards receiving. No, it's not that. He had a good game, but it could have been better. But I think, Kyle, I'm with you. When the defense plays a first half like that, mm-hmm. and you only score 10,
right?
I mean, come on, man. You can't. You gotta stop asking that one unit to do every single thing. At some point, somebody has to step up. I know Everett Rivers was saying, listen, I'm telling you right now, it's not on the scheme. At some point, the players have to execute. And then he backpedaled it and came back with, we've got to coach them up better. I don't know. Figure it out. So, the own coaching staff doesn't know if it's the player's fault or the scheming fault. Well, but either way, somebody's got to figure it out. Because
I think
I think that was Everett's way of saying he knows it's the player's fault, right? And then he had to. Let's back up a little bit because I don't want to throw these 19-year-olds under the bus, but I think that's essentially what it came down to.
I appreciated that honesty because it's borderline disrespectful to the defense what the offense goes out there and does every week. These guys are already on the field longer than they should be. And you wonder why in the last quarter and a half of games, they tumble and fall. They're already out there longer than they should be. And now you really can't put drives together. And plus teams are going no huddle. They're at a severe disadvantage. The offense has to help out at some point this season.
And no week is that going to be more of a detriment to them than this upcoming week.
Exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, so Navy's 2-5 overall, and they've been a weird team to figure out. Again, they're 2-5, so there's not a ton of mystery to it. But they beat ECU in 2 overtimes back on September 24th. They routed Tulsa 53-21. And then since that Tulsa win, they're coming off 2 straight losses. They lost 40-34 to SMU. Then they lost 38-20 to Houston last week. They gave up 5 touchdown passes to Clayton Tune. He's a good quarterback. It shows you that Temple can throw the ball against them. Again, I would not compare EJ Warner to Clayton Tune just yet. For what it's worth, they have the top ranked rushing defense in the conference. Navy does. One thing to note, Navy's getting outscored 61-17 the first quarter of the season. So there's an opportunity for Temple to start fast, which they absolutely have to do. There's no rocket science there. If Temple can start fast, if they can get even a 2-score lead on them, that's not to say that Navy's just going to stop running the ball. They do throw it a little bit more than they traditionally have. Ty Lavatai throws the ball a little bit more than he did last year. He's capable of doing it. He's not a great throwing quarterback, but gosh, that would be huge for them, and then maybe it's going to be a situation where they look at the numbers and say, we're going to have to, Danny Langsdorff is saying, we got to throw to try to run later if we can. So something's not firing for Navy on these slow starts. And there's an opportunity there for Temple. If they don't start fast, they're just probably not going to win this game. The triple option offense Navy has is what, it's what you'd expect. They've had more dynamic rushing offenses in the past, but you've got 3 players getting work and Daba Fofana, their leading rusher at fullback. He's got the most carries of any back in that offense, 425 yards, 4 touchdowns. Again, Ty Lavatai leads them with 5 rushing touchdowns at quarterback. And then McQuell Haywood is averaging 6.5 yards per carry. He hasn't scored a touchdown yet. So they still do what they do. They're 4th in the country in rushing offense. They run it so much. They've only scored 13 rushing touchdowns this season. So it's, again, concerning for Temple in that they couldn't stop the run last week and that Navy's going to run every which way they can at you, fullback dives and stuff like that. Again, Ty Lavitai's throwing the ball more. He's thrown for 785 yards, 5 touchdowns. He's only completed 47% of his passes, but he's already attempted almost 30 more passes than he did all of last season. Defensively, they play a 3-4 front. They've been, they weren't great last week. Look, some good teams have put up points on them, but they're not a terrible defense. Again, for what it's worth, they've had the top ranked rushing defense in the conference this season. They haven't been good defending the pass. They've only allowed 5 rushing touchdowns, 102 yards a game, 3.4 yards per carry. They've got a couple of good players on defense. John Marshall's their leading tackler at that striker position. So that's kind of like their linebacker safety hybrid spot. He's got 51 tackles, 7.5 TFLs, 3 sacks. And then they've got a guy who has 5 sacks in Jacob Busick. So they've got some playmakers on that end of the ball. That side of the field. We know what Temple has to do to win, which is like contain the run, get an early lead. The question is, can they do it?
No, most likely not. Real quick, you just did a great job of reading the stats. But to put one, they passed the most since 2001 Navy team. That 2001 Navy team lost to Temple. Jason McKee, Aaron McKee's cousin, rushed for 120 yards and a tutty. This might be Navy's last chance of the win this year, which I don't think is something to discount. They go to Cincy after this. They play Notre Dame on neutral site after that. Then they go to UCF. Then, of course, they have Army, which, they did beat Army last year, so that's always a possibility. But
this is their senior day, too.
Yeah, right. So there's a lot of, off the field factors into this that I don't think bode well for Temple. But I also think it might be the end of Ken Niumatalolo's tenure there, which I actually think I said last year too, but I think it's getting towards the end of that. I'm having trouble envisioning Temple being able to stop this run whatsoever. I think they're going to be able to move the ball. I really do. I think teams will be able to pass against their corners. Their corners really aren't dynamic threats. I think they only have 3 picks this entire season. I think EJ should be able to throw the ball. I think it's going to be long defensive drives that eventually you'll just see in the second half. They just don't have the depth at certain positions for them to weather this type of game.
Yeah, I think on the emotional side, multiply it by at least 2, because Niumatalolo feels more strongly about this senior class than possibly any other one. Because this senior class is the one that was directly affected by COVID. A good portion of them left, and the ones who stayed, he has a lot of love and appreciation for. Is the Naval Academy got hit worse than.
That is a great point, Javon, in the sense that I am thinking of they had to leave, right? If you were a senior in 2020 at the Naval Academy, you couldn't postpone your going to serve your tenure as in the Navy. So while other schools got to kind of take advantage of that extra year of eligibility, the Naval Academy, Army, Air Force, the Merchant Marines didn't get to take advantage of that, right? Because those guys had to still leave, and maybe you're still seeing the ramifications of that.
Yeah, not only that, but the guys who still had a whole bunch of eligibility left, they were isolated. They were in their dorms, and if they were traveling, it wasn't in more than packs.
Are you telling me they couldn't go to Pussers in Annapolis? Was Pussers shut down? Could they not get?
They couldn't do a damn thing, Kyle. And mentally, a lot of those guys got so depressed that they just went straight to Ken's office and had to come to Jesus.
I love Pussers. This is my recommendation to go to Pussers.
Just told him straight up, I can't do this anymore, man.
Javon, ask Kyle where he got engaged.
I guess that's where he's got engaged.
Not Pussers. You've been to Pussers.
In Annapolis.
Pussers is not a place to get engaged. It's not bad. There's boats there, stuff. Yeah. But yeah, Annapolis.
I told Javon the story about how Golden was like, Ken's got a great job. Just sits and watch the boats go by during practice.
Never has to throw the ball.
Yeah.
He has to throw the ball.
But yeah, on that note though, bottom line, Ken loves this senior class more than almost any other one he's ever had. So you got all of that combined with the fact that you look on film. I can show this film to my 12-year-old little brother who plays Madden all day, and he'll straight up point out, if I run the ball and go no huddle, I'm getting this team up out of there. Okay. Now you put that to a Navy staff that does this professionally, and all they do is run the damn ball most of the time. Come on, man. John, your IA is going to be done in the 3rd quarter, maybe earlier than that.
Ooh. Well, the other thing too, and again, I think anybody who watches the game of football knows this, it takes what Temple has done well with players like Leighton Jordan and Darian Varner. And as cliche as it sounds, they can't pin their ears back and just say, we're going after the quarterback. Now they have to read their keys, all the stuff that you find coming out of your mouth when it comes to, covering playing Navy. They have to be gap sound, discipline set.
And that's their biggest problem on defense. They have no gap discipline if you let Everett Withers and Stan Drayton tell the story. Yeah.
And so I think, again, it would be huge for them if they can get a lead. Then again, I'm not saying that it's like an NFL game, like Navy just completely abandons the run. They won't. They'll still try to come back that way, but that's the only chance they have. I think if you're Temple, I think this is the one game where you win the opening coin toss, you take it. You don't defer to the second half. I think you'd want to take the ball. You want to get down there and score, try to get a 2-score lead, and then maybe hope that they drop back a little bit and you try to force some turnovers. I think that's the only way that they win. I actually think even just the opening coin toss is going to be big for them. And again, this isn't the best Navy team that we've seen in a while, but it's just an indictment of where, I think we'd feel better about this game for Temple's sake if they had defended the run a lot better last week. But as soon as, again, once you see Prince go for 84 yards untouched up the middle, I thought, oof, okay, this does not bode well for next week. What's the line on this game?
13.5.
Again?
Yeah.
13-point underdogs.
I think I got to 12.5 last week. I might have slipped, but it's right around there. 12.5, 13.5. Over under is 40.5.
I do think they cover. I have another gripe with this offense. Like you can't deceive anyone. You're not creating anything. When can we expect to see some more up-tempo stuff? Like, I know communication isn't the best on that offense because we've seen them waste countless timeouts on not knowing what they want to do. But at some point, when you can't get any defense to slip up on any play, you got to start going to trying to expose them that way.
You want to make an offense that already can't sustain drives? You want to make that time even quicker? Hurry up.
I don't know, man. Kyle, they got to figure out some way to put points on.
Alex Odom is on the sidelines right now going, Javon, come on, man. I want them to slow it down.
And I'm with you, but at some point, like it might have to be like just speed it up and hope you can start scoring that way. And then it's all right, defense, hold them to a field goal, bend but don't break, which I think would save their lungs a lot also. But something's got to change. They can't keep up what they've been doing.
No, I don't disagree. Big week for Alex Odom and the safety group. I know gap discipline gets a lot of coverage, obviously, with options, but you need good safeties against the option. I think Alex Odom is a pretty good safety. Elijah Darraville started in place of Jalen Ware this last week. Who's going to be that number 2 safety? I'll be curious.
Yeah. Prediction time.
3:30 game. I don't like 3:30 games. Give me noon. I know people like 3:30 games for like going to the games, but like I got just have a noon. Navy 38. Temple 28. I'll say they get some points, but they still lose by double digits.
38-13.
You said they would cover.
No, I meant Navy was going to cover.
okay.
Okay. Yeah, 38-13 and Chuck Sullivan and all you guys. Why is the Temple USF game at 2:00? Like that's 2 programs right now that are just like that should be a noon game, especially since it's on ESPN Plus. Like 2:00 benefits nobody.
Yeah, that's terrible. Yeah, that's terrible. That's the death rattle of Jeff Scott versus hopefully, Temple still in year 1 of a rebuild. No. Yeah, more people are going to be watching reruns of One Tree Hill than they're going to be watching the Temple USF.
What a pull there. One Tree Hill.
My wife is actively rewatching One Tree Hill. And she acknowledges this is a bad show. It's like, yeah, it was always a bad show. You just watch it. He goes from playing in an AAU team to being the starting point guard of the Charlotte Bobcats in 2 episodes. 2 episodes.
One Tree Hill. I haven't seen a single episode of One Tree Hill.
I've never sat down and watched one either, but I picked up on the entire premise.
My mom and my older brother's dad used to watch that show. And elementary school Javon maybe indulged a little bit.
I'm going to go 31-17 Navy. We do have one other mailbag question here from the screen name, what TU. Question is, at a certain point, does Stan Drayton admit this roster isn't good enough to keep being aggressive on offense in certain 4th down situations?
Can I touch on this one first, Kyle? I know it seems like I'm just steamy today. I was waiting on a mailbag question like this.
Get him, Javon.
Because these damn analytics are ruining all that is holy.
He was
about
saying this in
about my
the
money.
press box, like almost in
I
this
went on a
tone.
nice tangent. Yes. Just get him out of sports at this point. You've already ruined basketball for me. Football is going downhill. I mean, baseball. Look at the Yankees if you want to know what analytics has done to the sport.
I'm convinced that you're older than me.
I mean, this is ridiculous. I've never understood the analytics say if you're down 14, go for 2 the first time. Why? It is so much harder to have to go for 2 the second time than if you have the option to go for 2.
Because the analytics say you're going with the negative of, hey, you don't get the 2. But if you get the 2 on the first touchdown, that sets you up to not have to go for 2 the second time, and you're winning instead of tying. That's where the win probability added comes in.
The negative if is way more significant than the positive if.
And if ifs and buts were candies and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas, Javon. There's 2 scenarios to both.
I hear you, but one scenario is much more drastic, especially when you don't have a good team. You want to give yourself a chance to win? Stan, I love you. Your best chance to win is to take the game into overtime. You do not have the team to try to have to go for it on a 2-point conversion. You just don't. Because now when it's blanket back and smother the field, you've got no receivers or tight ends that know how to create space. And EJ's a true freshman still trying to figure out how to read defenses. Regardless of the 70 hours of film he watches with his dad, he's still learning on the fly. Stop with this, oh my goodness, go for it on 2 the first time. No, it's stupid. And so are the rest of your spreadsheets and Google Sheets and Microsoft Excels and all that crap. It's lunacy. The Lakers can't shoot threes, and they shoot 40 a game.
What did the Lakers?
19% from 3. The Ravens lost 6 damn games in a row last year off of a damn spreadsheet. When are we going to realize the crap doesn't work? It just doesn't. My goodness. They strike out a home run each time. And guess what they just went? They just got their sorry asses sent home in 4 to the team they haven't beaten in 6 years. Stop talking to me about analytics.
Javon's getting some stuff out of the basement right now that has nothing to do with them.
There's a lot of stuff I want to take away from that. But the number one thing is that you just went on a tangent that wasn't even what the question was about. The question was about them going for it on 4th down, and you went on 3 minutes about why they shouldn't go for it under 14. I don't disagree, to be honest, but to be the Shannon Sharp to your Skip Bayless on this, I'm going to take the other side. I think I go back a lot in my life when thinking about football to the quote that somebody had when the Eagles beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl. They said, you don't beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl on Sunday. You beat them on Tuesday when you decide to be aggressive. When you decide, like, going into this game, I'm going to do A, B, and C. I think Stan Drayton's at least aware enough of his team's deficiencies to know, like, the only chance we have in some of these situations is even if the analytics say, oh, we should be punting, it's 4th and 4 from our own 40, there needs to be times where I need to trust my gut and be aggressive in order to give myself the best chance of winning and to put my players in the best position to win, because we can't just stand up and line up 11-11 on them. We're not at that point in our rebuild. So I think there's times when they just need to be more aggressive to do that. When it doesn't work, when you go with the negative, like you just talked about, then it's going to look bad and you're going to get second guessers. We talked about this in the press box against Rutgers. We're like, why did he do that? That came back to beat him. But if it had worked, Stan Drayton looks like a genius. It looks like he trusts his guys. It looks like all this happened. I think that's a combination of wanting to instill faith in your players, boost their confidence, and also like they kind of need to in order to have a chance at these games.
And here's my response to that. I've got no problem with being aggressive at all. You're talking to a guy whose team had to go through the Patriots a few years. I understand that. You have to be aggressive. Like, I get it. But be aggressive when it's smart. Stan, they went for it on the 4th down, like if they failed, Rutgers was damn near in the red zone already. Like, it's stuff like that. If you're going to do it, make it make sense. That's my own thing. And when you say, if he said he trusted his gut, Kyle, I'll be making a different point. I probably wouldn't even mention analytics. But he straight up said out of his mouth Saturday, and you could see my eyes roll. And I tried to hold it in, but you could see my eyes roll. He said, and I quote, I trust my analytics. They don't work. They just don't. The 2 eyes in a bunch of years of common sense can get you any further than some stupid ass math equation made up by some geeks in Silicon Valley who wish they could have contributed to their high school sports.
Another thing.
They didn't have a damn.
Another thing from your thing. You You talked about how you hate numbers being the sports, and then you cited the Lakers' inability. You cited the Lakers' shooting percentage as a reason why they shouldn't be shooting threes.
And why?
Guess what? That's just a formula, Javon. That's just
Kyle. Don't.
That's
do
just
that.
shot complete divide by shot attempts.
Don't do that. Now you know that's common sense. If you can't shoot threes, why the hell are you shooting 40 of them?
I don't know. I've watched a lot of Temple basketball where that's not common sense.
But why are they shooting those 43s? Because the numbers say shoot the three. The number said that J.R. Smith shooting a contested three from the corner in 2016 was a better option than giving it to than Tristan Thompson in the post. But in what world? Like this, I mean, we're listening to something that says dumb stuff like that. Do we not understand how lost we are as a country now? And we wonder why we're like third in the world power rankings? We've lost ourselves. We're idiots now. We're idiots.
This has been highly entertaining.
Euro basketball has been attempting a shit ton of threes for 45 years. So the Europeans were ahead of us on that aspect of it.
Yeah, but who still wins the Olympics most of the time?
I don't know. I just watched the Redeem Team. The first half was a sad
Oh yeah,
part.
You're definitely right about that. You're definitely right. And I went on a tangent about that in my own head too.
My own head tangent. Love it.
Well, that was enjoyable. There's
some person's driving north on 95 right now, and they had to pull over because Javon just scared them. Like just like the random shouting, like, oh, you know what? Just let them calm down, and I'll take the turn off to Woodbridge or whatever later.
Yeah, that was very entertaining.
I wish I could bottle that moment, Javon.
Yeah, but we can.
I'll clip it and send it to you.
Yeah. All right. I would say we're going to return after a break from our sponsors, but this is the official end of the podcast. We don't have any sponsors yet.
MeUndies.com/thescoop. Talk to you next week.
We'll be back next week to talk about this Navy game, talk a little bit more Temple hoops. Thanks for listening. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the Scoop on any of the major platforms. Give us a rating and review that helps raise not only the profile of our podcast on those platforms, but on Temple Sports Talk as a whole. So we greatly appreciate it. Again, I don't know what I would do in my day if I did not have that moment right there. That was tremendous. Javon, imagine what you would do if you had coffee.
I'm just speaking from the heart, man.
You looked tired.
I got yelled at like I was the one that said.
I know.
Oh no, and I want you to know this is not directed at you whatsoever.
I was like,
this is just
it's me, buddy. We're here.
I still love you, Kyle. It was just, when I hear the analytics, something just, ticks.
Fair enough. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you next week.